Again, another series from the EPL Open Cup Europe Edition. In the bottom right, on Ephemeron, it is HeRoMaRiNE. In the top left is the blue Protoss. It is DnS. How many subs do I need? 30 more. Got my cat a heat mat. She loves it, just in case you're into spoiling your cats. I've thought about getting them heat mats. They might like one up on the tower, I'm not sure. Most cats love heat maps. Heat mats. Most cats love them. But there's always that chance they do that cat thing and they just don't care about it. Actually, where are my cats? There's one. Camouflage in the couch yet again, so he's good at that. Especially if he curls into the couch, then he has nothing but black showing. And like I literally can't find him. I don't know where Apollo is. Probably underneath the couch. They like to chill there. Alright, so HeRoMaRiNE, one of those guys that also really doesn't need that much of an introduction. He's been really showing up to a lot of the premier tournament stops. Round of 8s a lot of the time. Round of 4s occasionally. Unfortunately, never made it to a finals, despite being the leading Terran for some time of the non-Korean brackets. Uthermal, you know, is always one of those hopes, but then doesn't seem to really push it as far. Special is actually the other guy. He definitely matches and then sometimes does better than HeRoMaRiNE. He did get to a finals, but he faced Cyril, and that just probably wouldn't have gone any better for either one of these Terrans to face Cyril. But anyways, and then you kind of start to run out of Terrans, actually, in the foreign scene that continue to get those top 8s. Time, I guess. Yeah, time. Although he is not participating in IEM, which is just a real bummer, really. He's got a fun style.
Apparently you are doing something right,
He's been improving ever since his kind of breakout performance in 2018's Montreal. Anywho, so I want to talk a little bit more about DnS after we watch this Reaper dance. Reaper dance. Dies. Thank you, Jim SC2 for the 3-month resub. Here is my contribution. Oh, well, thank you very much. Now I just need 29 more subs. The Reaper did scout a Stargate, so that was a good use of the Reaper. Try and get as many probe kills as you can. 1-1-1 over here for HeRoMaRiNE. No bunker, but he's going to pull his SCVs away and wait for more reinforcements. So the Adept that does come across the map as soon as the Reaper dies doesn't do anything. So to talk a little bit about DnS. DnS, maybe his best performance was in an online cup where he like 5-0'd Neve or something. At this point, though, that was 3 or 4 years ago. So that's not that impressive when I contextualize it like that. But to make him look a little bit better otherwise, he has been one of those up-and-coming Protosses in Europe. At one point might have been a little better than Drogo, but then Drogo, like, you know, spent some time in Korea, really improved, and he went back to being one of, if not the best, European Protoss. But he was kind of there neck and neck with a lot of the other Protosses. Showtime also wasn't doing very well in previous years, so despite being a grand name, he wasn't doing hot in the brackets. Well, DnS was at least doing okay, really pushing it in the Challenger Series and trying to get to round of 8s in the main events. There's actually a big attack on the way, but that Cyclone popped out just perfect timing. Obviously, HeRoMaRiNE knew about the Stargate, went for a Cyclone Viking follow-up, and that was a great hold. DnS really overzealous right there. And HeRoMaRiNE's going to take the opportunity to just immediately counter, and that's going to be a little difficult for DnS to hold, who did invest in a second Oracle into a Phoenix, delayed his additional 2 gateways, delayed his warp-ins off the single gateway. Cyclone even catching a Stalker and going to get the kill, just barely, but still very, very weak. And with a Viking available, Oracles just really don't help out very much. So that's actually a 3rd Oracle? Oh no, it's just the 2nd one, okay. But yeah, anyways, DnS is just a name you should always be looking out for, another French Protoss, but he is currently being overshadowed, I'd say, by Drogo, primarily. And Showtime is once again on that whole, like, hype train of just doing fantastic on ladder. Still a guy I look forward to casting. Cyclone is finally going to grab that very weak Stalker. Good focus fire here from HeRoMaRiNE. 2 Cyclones and a Viking are still pretty damn intimidating with any amount of extra units. A second Viking comes in here. SV's on the repair, going to barely save that Cyclone. Good micro so far. Phoenix lifting up the Cyclone that is healthy. Viking going to go down to the Stalkers as they reprioritize their target fire. The Cyclone over here not going to be able to really live. Are you serious? Really? It actually gets the lock on. Doesn't get the kill, though. This was so micro-intensive. Good God. Oh, my good God. That was so damn close. But DnS, I mean, he went for the Phoenix because they can help out in that scenario. They don't take that extra damage from the Viking. They can lift really important units, and that's all that's really there, just a couple of very helpful, important units. But it does mean he has less Stalkers, you know, on the front lines, but he really made that work to the best of his abilities, and he kept all 3 bases alive, enough Stalkers alive. He reinforces with Stalkers to try and go for at least somewhat of a counter, but with the tank available, you know, pulling back after the attack was really halted. It looks like HeRoMaRiNe's going to be fine. HeRoMaRiNe does miss macro a little bit because of all that. As you can see, maybe he could have been a little bit more spaced out in his barracks, but it is HeRoMaRiNe, so I'm being very nitpicky when I say miss macro. But he probably slapped down 200 Urim bays, 2 barracks, and then very quickly 2 barracks after that, because he probably was banking a little bit here and there. But considering how long that micro battle took, I don't think you would expect anyone to do better, because you have to look back home to actually produce as a Terran, build that production. DnS slapped down his Forge and Twilight Council while that was going on, and then immediately got back into chronoing and upgrading them. He's now going to have that little burst of gateways that is typical for a Protoss, not so typical for a Terran. If you see 4 barracks at a time, like literally all 4 start at the same time, that means the Terran mismacroed. If you see 6 gateways being put down at the same time, that means it's a Protoss. I've never really thought about it until just now, but I guess one of the biggest differences is just that the Terran has to wait for add-ons to really utilize their production, so it really is like ASAP, ASAP, ASAP. Whereas a Protoss just literally slaps down gateways, and they even automatically transform now. I'm not trying to paint this as one race is harder than the other, even though that might be how it's coming out. Just one of the funny things about the differences here. Anyhow, scanning the natural to try and see an army, as he has nothing really set up. So I'm guessing that was an army technology scout. Doesn't see very much, just a robo and a couple stalkers. Third base was where it's at. I think a marine or something. Try to get some scouting there. Saw nothing but gateway units. With a fast third nexus being, I guess, not really scouted too quickly. You never technically saw it, but no Colossus scout. Decent number of ground army with whatever that was. Yeah, I guess you would just assume it's the gateway forge style, which it is. But it's not double forge, and it's actually much quicker into storm than I would expect from a lot of professional Protosses. I talked about this a little bit last time we watched HeRoMaRiNe play against a Protoss. I think it was Mana. Mana went for some fairly quick storm as well, kind of similar to what DnS is doing, but maybe he took more damage in the early game. Regardless, I'll go over it again. Faster storm isn't actually that much better. These professional Terrans are very good at splitting, concaving, and HeRoMaRiNe in this case actually has tanks to even try and zone that out a little bit. So he's going to take the concave here. The tanks aren't going to get a lot of shots, and those storms are actually beautiful. I think he thought that he was far away enough not to be hit by the storms, because that was actually a big blunder from HeRoMaRiNe, who was the one who initiated that attack. You'd expect that to have gone a lot better than it did. So immediately proving my point wrong, so thank you very much about that. But seriously, like, if he has incentive X there, if he actually runs away from the storms, if his tanks are pre-sieged, I think it looks a lot worse for DnS. But as it is, those storms were beautiful. Still a lot of bio left over, even though it is a little bit weak. Medevac's running awfully dry. But here come a couple more storms, at least in 10-15 seconds. DnS is already on 4 bases, so he can definitely reproduce a lot of this. HeRoMaRiNe is on 3 base saturation with the 4th base on the way, but his Ghost Academy only just finished. And when you're lacking those bio units, you take one bad fight, that's when Storm is the deadliest thing. You either need a decent amount of units, especially Marauders, or you need those EMPs. Quick look on those medevacs just saved their lives. That's good for HeRoMaRiNe. DnS did skip Blink for a long time, only just now researching it, so luckily for HeRoMaRiNe, he does not have to worry about getting his drops picked off so much. Left a couple Marines back home as he saw the recall coming in. It's mostly the Zealots and a single Immortal. He's going to rip into that 3rd base economy. Go for the Nexus, perhaps? That's a little bit overzealous. Going to once again be forced to leave a couple units back home. Stalkers in the main base are warped in. No Blink, as I was saying, but you definitely don't want to go in there with weak medevacs. This has completely taken away DNS's momentum, and in fact, looks like we have a hotkey problem. Either he was planning on putting those on the Warp Prism, never hotkeyed them, or has them on an entirely separate hotkey that he's not using quite yet. Alright, good. Now he picks them up and goes home. HeRoMaRiNe holds just with that little drop, honestly, because otherwise, with his Ghost not there and his army a little bit low or basically non-existent on the defense, that would have been a very scary attack. DnS did add on a second forge, so he's going to try and get to 3-1, but that's 3-1. That's actually a pretty, I would say, late second forge, as HeRoMaRiNe is already finishing up his 2-2 and a planetary at the 4th base. He's been in the habit of putting a Liberator here. We might see that later on, but it's not DnS doing any of the harassment anyways. It's all on HeRoMaRiNe, who goes for a big old drop in the natural base. Widowmines included, dealing a lot of damage to the probe line. Zealot's going to go down to these Widowmines as well, so a very good pickoff right there. And without Blink still not being done, the Medivacs can absolutely escape. A feeble attempt at a Storm to weaken those up. You could try and feed back a few of them, but none of them will die thanks to Feedback's nerf a long time ago. And HeRoMaRiNe's, the rest of his army, is coming forward. And it's looking very, very scary. 20 supply up here. Upgrades even better. Warp Prism distracted, trying to deal with the drops. That's, it's just oh no, I think he needs that on the front line. It's such an odd way to deal with drops, to try and storm them, especially when there's so many Marauders still left over, so that's not going to look too great. EMP on top of the Zealot to the right side. A lot of the army coming from the left side, though. He's surprising HeRoMaRiNe just a little, but he looks like he's going to take the fight. EMP's blanket the army on the left side. A couple of pops and mortal shields as well, but once again, very low on the health for all that bio. Medivac's not getting enough time to utilize their energy to heal. Drop in the main base has been mostly pushed back, but did depower a +1 attack and a couple of gateways, which I'm sure DnS is desperate to use as he's banking quite a few minerals. Looks like the Marauders actually survived the storm as well. A single Marauder survived the storm, and DnS is struggling to get that probe count back up to what he wants. 51 workers on 4 bases is not actually what you want. His army is also getting bopped by the EMPs, just enough to blanket most of those Archons, but still a great concave for DnS. It's just those upgrades I think are really starting to work out for HeRoMaRiNe as he's kind of pushing through. Good blink forward to take out a Medivac that did have quite a few units. Just 1 or 2 storms could really change things up, and the Ghosts are empty on that energy. So yeah, he's going to go ahead and retreat and probably, invest into more production. Looks like he already added 3 barracks, but, 5th CC on the way, Fusion Core on the way. Starts up his upgrades. It's a 60 supply difference, though, and DnS is kind of on a one-dimensional army right now. It's just Storm Gateway. No Colossus transition to really mix things up. No Warp Prism out on the map with DTs to try and get some harassment in. HeRoMaRiNe just has to take a non-terrible fight against Storm, which I'm sure he's very capable of doing. EMPs predicting where the storms will come out. So it gets 1 way, but still gets blanketed by 2 storms. It's not going to be enough, actually. Big old concave on this big portion of Ephemeron, and he just collapses in on the remaining army. GG. HeRoMaRiNe looking very good in TVP. DnS bringing out, as I was saying, just kind of maybe like a bit of like an older school style. I would kind of characterize it as that faster storm. If you want to look at a game where faster storm is punished like I was describing, then definitely check out HeRoMaRiNe versus Mana, which should be up on my YouTube either now or very soon. In the top left of Triton, we have HeRoMaRiNe. And the bottom right, as the blue Protoss, it is DnS. I always wonder how casters do about 50/50 on the viewing. What do you mean? Did anyone see the Pylon show announcement? It was just announcing like the guests and what the subject is, but I have no idea what they meant by it. It was like, we're going to discuss the beginning of crafting stars, and I'm like, what does that mean? 50/50 to show like both gamers as much? Oh, it's pretty much impossible. If I get 50/50, it's totally a coincidence. Generally what happens is you are a little more knowledgeable on one race or another, so you are subconsciously a little biased. You know, getting really dig deep into one of the builds because you know that build type thing. Or it's just a lot... It makes a lot more sense to follow the person who's doing the action. So that also comes across as biased. You know, the Terran will be like dropping every which way and pushing and doing everything. And the casters would be like, wow, look at this Terran. And some guy in chat inevitably goes, wow, these Terran casters are so biased. Well, he's the one that's doing things. It's not my fault. I did enjoy your nerdy Terran origin story. Talking about making new events? Maybe. A YouTube channel called Crafting Stars. Is that the third guy I didn't really know as well? But what is it, though? Like, what does it do? Dean is going to go for a proxy Stargates. HeRoMaRiNe has not been preempting anything like this. If his Reaper doesn't see anything, then that should tell him to be wary of a proxy. And if it's going to be a proxy from a Protoss on 2 bases, it's most likely going to be a Stargate. But Triton does have a pretty neat wall off, so you can get the Reaper up here, but it can't actually go into the main base. Otherwise, there's no other wall off. There's no other Reaper hop up, rather. So, just a single Adept's gonna block that out, or it should have. Regardless, that Stargate's closing in on finishing, so as HeRoMaRiNe even is very shy with his Reaper here, he is not gonna be able to see anything wrong. Bunker in the natural is going to help against any other additional damage taken by like an Adept or another Oracle. But the main base, as I was saying, HeRoMaRiNe's never like preemptively put his Widow Mines there, the just in case Widow Mines. And he probably won't put his Marines up there either, which you only need 4. It's not that bad. Oh man, I'm totally wrong. Look at that. Maybe he does that because... Well, he got into the main base actually. I think that's why he did it. He got into the main base. Also, he didn't know it was on the way. And those two things, yeah, definitely put your Widow Mine in the mineral. Widow Mine in the mineral line. If you don't have proper scouting. HeRoMaRiNe's smart. It makes you look dumb. Thank you. Nice username for the 10-month resub. Oracle is going to try and go for what it can. It sees one Widow Mine burrowing in the natural, and it's got to be worried about one in the main. It's all over to the left side. So he's not going to bother trying to chase on the SCVs. Proxy Oracle, even if it wasn't dealt with by Widow Mine in the mineral lines, I keep thinking I'm saying the same phrase twice. It just isn't as devastating as it used to be. But the other kind of good thing about proxying a Stargate as opposed to just going for one is that, you know, especially since it's unlikely to be scouted, you don't have that instant Cyclone Viking that actually kind of ruined DNS's plans last game. You know, he goes for a Viking kind of as a reaction, as opposed to already set up for it. So many good emotes. Oh, thank you. Oracle is a little injured, so it's got to be careful about running into that Viking. Behind this, DnS grabs a pretty fast third base, goes directly into Blink this game. He kind of had a weird situation where he built a decent amount of Phoenix to hold that counter, and then kind of made a couple, and maybe felt that he didn't need Blink, or he wanted to skip Blink for any other reason. Blink didn't come in until like 10 minutes in the game. This is looking a lot more like a standard follow-up. Just the Oracle, well, in proxy, of course, but then right into the Blink, Robo, and Single Forge. I'm curious to see if he goes for the Fast Storm once again, or focuses a bit more on the Gateway. I already know the answer, actually. With 4 gases taken instead of 3, he's going to be going up to Faster Storm. Oh, Widow Mine Drop's going to actually scout that. Always a second-hand effect of the Widow Mine Drop. Not only do you get 3 probes and a Stalker, heck yeah, you also get some decent scouting. Viking looks like it was distracting DNS a bit in the main base, which is why he didn't really pull. And at that funny time as well, when you notice as late as possible the Widow Mine, it's better not to pull away. Otherwise, you just bulk up your probes. It still kind of sucks about losing a Stalker, however. So that's the worst part about it. Especially if Blink was done, which I didn't catch the timing. Follow-up of a third CC, a couple tanks, similar to that last game. Stim and Combat Shields both should be started very soon. Double upgrades immediately this time. Okay, so there's a bit of a slight difference. Goes for a single drop of Marine to the left side as well. Maybe just to take out this proxy pylon. Just be done with it already. Who else is eating goldfish? You probably shouldn't eat your goldfish. Nice username. Unless you mean the crackers, and then that's fine. By the way, goldfish crackers are delicious. It's not a Templar Archives. but it is still more technology. You have more than 3 gases of that Protoss, you're gonna go for some type of technology. In this case, it's right up into that Colossus. Not a transition into double Robo Colossus, but right up into Colossus. So, I mean, I guess there's a couple different ways that HeRoMaRiNe could scout this without literally seeing the robotics bay, but it is unlikely that he will see that robotics bay. This is surprisingly annoying. The medevac using the high ground continues healing the Marines, which do a lot more damage to the Stalkers than anticipated. Oracle's forced to come by to clean it up, but dang, that was surprisingly clever. It was surprisingly effective. I would not have thought of that. Oh, man. Second Forge now on the way. As I said, like, last game, his Second Forge also felt kind of delayed. Probably one of the sacrifices he felt he had to make to come back in the game. Now that DnS has gotten a lot more momentum, all right, loses Oracle, but gets a lot more momentum with that start, he's got really fantastic map presence. He's got a lot of pylons covering every which way. Yeah, it's a loss of 100 minerals, but it should not supply block you. And it's a lot more important to actually see the drops incoming, which did do a lot of damage last game. Double hallucination is guaranteed to get a scout in the main base. You're not really searching for much past the 7-minute point, like assuming you do know they have a 3rd CC, which I think he kind of figured out. But it sees how quick the 4th CC is, and it sees that it is, in fact, Ghost Academy first, which is the typical response of a Terran, even if they know it's Colossus. But what might change... Stasis trap? Stasis trap? Stasis trap. What might change is the way that the Terran army engages if it knows it's one over the other. Thank you, Hyojin Starcraft, for that tier 1 sub. Hells yeah. Just gonna wait for the smile while you destroy it. Yeah. My mom would always like rip the arms and legs off like a gummy bear and laugh about it, and like do a little like fake gummy bear voice. You're like, no, my leg, oh no. And when I say it like that, it sounds very morbid, but it was actually very cute. Anyways, Stargate also finally going to go down here. Scans the middle of the map to see, hey, it's first of all, it's Colossus. The laser beams were the first sign. But also that army was a little too close for comfort without knowing it was actually moving out. It's not really moving out, though. Something that HeRoMaRiNe does not know, so you see a wild guess as to where the army is. A lot of the times, a Warp Prism combination attack is the Protoss's plan. And I think it would have been okay for DnS to do so. But he plays it a little bit safe here. Only does the Warp Prism drop. Only gets 3 SCVs. Oh my god. He MMA'd himself. Oh my god. Oh, I would never have expected that. In 1,000 years, I never would have expected that to ever happen again in StarCraft. I mean, in a ladder game, sure. But HeRoMaRiNe, defensively, with nothing else going on, is exactly like MMA. MMA had nothing else he was worrying about. Let his tanks kill his command center. How? How? Oh my god, that's why that's... Okay, well, he's gonna lose this game. He's just gonna straight up lose the game. DnS is gonna be like, wait, what? Why is that just turning into an orbital now? That severely undercuts his transition. 3 base, full saturation going on a 4. You very easily get to the double pump starport Ghost Academy. And upgrades and triple Marauder production. But without that full saturation consistently, like, you do have to kind of pick and choose. At a pretty important juncture, too. I mean, HeRoMaRiNe's close to maxing out, so if he plays a defensive long game, he'll make up for that loss. But he doesn't have the time to do that. There's already a Protoss army right here, right now. His tanks are in siege. A couple of good EMPs, a good concave as well to dodge the disruptors. In fact, good dodging of said disruptors. Vikings also on top of the Colossus turns this into a surprisingly good fight, despite some limited production back on the barrack side of things. But is it going to be good enough? His army is a little overstimmed, running into a choke as well. He wants to grab this last Colossus, which he barely will, but now has to worry about the defending disruptors. Big ol' Zealot warping as well on this brand new 3rd base. It's so awkward to say. 15 SCV is already going down, going to really pull HeRoMaRiNe back. Looks like his natural is also under attack just a little bit. And that's going to stop any momentum he just gained from that defense. DnS is going to finish up his +2 attack and have an upgrade advantage, as it looks like HeRoMaRiNe straight up just forgot. This was actually his first mistake in this game. He forgot the +2 armor. Apparently he wasn't feeling so hot in this tournament because he didn't eat that day, is a quote from a viewer here, but yeah, this is a very, very off HeRoMaRiNe. Disruptors are now his main concern. Viking's looking a little bit useless. Gonna have to dodge and weave. Disruptors not getting too much so far. It's a single ghost is an okay trade, considering he has a billion disruptors. The Zealots are ripping through his production, or his economy, though, and his production is too lackluster to really continue on with this game. He actually got a 4th base up and even turned it into an orbital, trying to make up for the devastating loss of his 3rd. But it's probably not going to be enough. And with all the harassment, with DnS getting on his side of the map, it'd be very hard to take a 4th base with an orbital. HeRoMaRiNe's going to try and flip the script a little bit, push the momentum onto DnS, and DnS actually lost track of the army. So he does not have his army fully prepared to deal with this 3rd base. It is going to go down, but then is he going to get any juicy shots with the disruptors? Lots of stalkers left over with the upgrade leader, going to take on the medivacs, and much of the ground army is once again DnS going for some harassment, is distracting HeRoMaRiNe, forcing him to pull SCVs into a very unideal scenario. DT's also coming in. He does have 4 orbitals, but he's been just replacing so many SCVs and muling so hard that that's not going to be easy to clean up. Liberator's trying to come forward, doing some good work. EMPs do tackle the stalkers at least halfway for these Liberators. EMP plus Liberator is a very deadly combination, so DnS is going to have to seriously consider not taking this engagement. But it's just a matter of time, it feels like. DT is still no longer really taking out SCVs, because there's not many to take out, I suppose. But now they're taking out some Marauders. The Blink-In is good, and it is going to be game. Oh, man. Can't believe he killed his own orbital. Can't believe it. I was like, maybe 7 DTs came in without me noticing? Like, I don't understand. No, he was A-clicking around the map and didn't realize he A-clicked on the command center. You know? That's the only way you target your own building. Fun stuff. Too bad DnS didn't just leave. Yeah, that was a game on test bug. MMA was... If he heard a noise, if he saw it on the mini-map, he probably thought it was just the rocks being attacked. But there really wasn't much else he was doing. He had like 2 drops, I guess, but... It was seriously so weird seeing MMA do that. Just as weird as seeing HeRoMaRiNe do that. It's a lot more forgivable, I think, when there's like a billion things happening at once. Maybe his cat did it. Yeah, maybe. All right, final game coming up here on Eternal Empire, as this is a best of 3. Choo-choo. In the top right is the Red Terran HeRoMaRiNe. In the bottom left is the Blue Protoss. He is DnS. And I don't know if he took enough time after that game ended to go into the replay and see what happens. He only saw what that observer saw, which was a 3rd being lifted over way too late and not an orbital. And I don't think you at all ever go to, oh, he killed his own orbital. That's not your first instinct. It's not your 3rd, your 4th, or your 5th. You might think, oh, he took the other 3rd. Oh, he played defensively and thought he had to delay his 3rd. Like, there's so many other things you would think of, although all of them are pretty bad. All of them are things you'd be like, well, HeRoMaRiNe's not a bad player, so that these all don't make any sense. But the most nonsensical thing would be him killing his own command center. So I don't know if HeRoMaRiNe maybe admitted it, honestly. Like, he maybe could have done that. Some players like to, talk to each other. I don't think HeRoMaRiNe's one of those guys, but it could have happened. Been like, yeah, I was a dummy, and Field Milling Command Center or what, but maybe a caster mentioned it. Like, hey, did you notice? I don't know. But HeRoMaRiNe is feeling off the day because he didn't eat. Was his excuse. This was last week's tournament. Well, like 3 days ago tournament. Yeah. The EPL is providing a lot of pretty sick. Pretty sick replays. Just thinking that we didn't get the NA 5-1, which happened on Sunday. Either there weren't a lot of good games, or they just forgot it. But that's alright. On top of the EPL replays I have access to, there's still a lot of IEM Katowice replays that still work and are still interesting. As we, you know, head up into IEM beginning, like in like 14 days, something like that. 12, 13 days. And we have I have access to Base JTV and Wardy's replays as well. And Wardy just has a billion replays, so. And Alima League. I mean, there's so many replays, you guys. And it's all pretty damn cheap. The IEM replay qualifiers, the qualifier replays, are all accessible for the public. And then Wardy, it's $5. Base JTV, it's $5. And Alima League, it's like $6 over a month or something. So good if you want to study up on StarCraft. These replays, though, are only reserved for the official EPL casters, so I'm special. Thank you very much. HeRoMaRiNe is going to change things up a little bit. He's going to go for a reactor opening on the factory. Excuse me. Very low on the defenses, by the way. No bunker to even try and pretend he has defenses. Reaper is cautiously at the Zelnaga, checking for an Adept coming across the map. Kind of like a weird, like, I know that you know type thing. The Adept wants to wait for the Reaper, even if a Stalker is about to pop out. So it's not going out there dealing damage it could have been doing and scouting what it could have been scouting. Now, these are only 2 Hellions, so it's mostly a scouting thing for HeRoMaRiNe. But more importantly, on top of the Hellions, which are going to do some damage here, we have a faster second barracks with faster stim. So it's going to be a swifter follow-up of stimmed drops. Hellions do finally go down, but six probes plus 2 in the main base from the Reaper is very worth the 2 Hellions. And on top of this, he doesn't have any worry about a counter. There just weren't enough units to really threaten that. There's a sentry, for God's sakes. That's not very intimidating. If there is, you just build a bunker, you put any amount of units possible into it. That's exactly what he's doing. Taking a possible counter more seriously than he probably should have. Like, he doesn't really have to, but with Stalkers out, then sure, you could try and just pick off a couple Marines. And that's something that HeRoMaRiNe doesn't want to happen, as he is going for an attack that is, as I was saying, a lot faster. It's not a starport one. It's like basically a 3 racks, which many of you probably still do, but pro gamers for the most part never do anymore. That's going to give him a lot of units. Medevac's going to come eventually, and he's going to save every single one of his units except that 1 Marine, because the bunker is already up and running. Robotics Bay is on the way for DnS on 2 bases, which might be pretty good. Point is, DnS can't be too greedy. Doesn't know what's... He actually got something in the main base. I think he was losing at Phoenix. So he can't be too greedy. He does know that. He does know that. And that is a pretty important part of this. Is this turret already coming down? Maybe he's afraid of DTs. Possibly afraid of just, like, DnS responding with DTs after taking so much damage. This does also stall observer coverage, you know, that sometimes gets an observer straight off because who puts a missile turret in their natural? But also will stop it from just getting, you know, the best scouting possible. Lucid Phoenix is out here anyways, and the observer is going to stay a ways away from the missile turret. Medevacs are about out, and every upgrade will be finished as HeRoMaRiNe pushes across the map. But DnS, again, going for that Colossus, kind of first and foremost, then a 3rd base. No greedy forge. Not even really greedy on the charge here. There we go. Finally starts up with that. He's going to have 1 Colossus, a handful of sentries, and a handful of units on the grounds. But this is still a point in time where DnS should feel very scared for just the sheer amount of units HeRoMaRiNe has against him. a lot about the force fields and knowing where you're being attacked as well. So the Observer still being alive and trying to cover the army is a good thing. Stalkers trying to keep track of the army is a great thing. HeRoMaRiNe confidently takes a third base on location. And he is more than right in doing so. He doesn't know about the Colossus, but he's about to stem up this ramp and see it. Force fields do go down, cutting the army in half pretty perfectly, or almost perfectly, letting a couple more Marauders to the right side and left side. Whoa, those little... Is that really going to be the difference maker here? Just a couple of units coming in from both sides of those force fields made it a more even fight than I was anticipating, because originally, that really looked like perfect force fields. That really did. But he ends up trading out a couple of sentries and a couple of stalkers for the bio there. Still a hold for DnS, as his third base is starting to get probed up here. Double Forge might be a tad too greedy. I don't know, we'll see about that. Second Colossus on the way, but no extended thermal lance started. That's just something he could actually afford even with the double upgrades. But did he forget about it? If he goes into Disruptor next, oh my god, I think he just forgot about it. A third Colossus and no Colossus range? That's painful. And now he's just like warping in a bunch of stalkers and using all of his minerals and gas, so he's not gonna think that something's off here. Sometimes you're like, why do I have so many extra blank or blank? And you're like, oh, because I'm a dummy. No, that's not what's gonna happen. You like, yeah, you really need to. It's only +1 range since the Colossus was changed a little bit, like literally just a change, but it's still a pretty important range. All right, well, let's see how that goes. It's not the dynamic of the Marauders hitting the Colossus, again with that change. It has like an innately a +1 range to it. It's more so the amount of shots it gets. When you watch TVP in slow motion, how the professionals actually tackle Protoss armies and how the Protoss army has to tackle a Terran's army, you'll notice more and more just how little Colossus gets shots in, right? Because they're in a concave and they're constantly kiting backwards. You take away just one range from that Colossus, and suddenly a couple, like 4 or 5 attacks turn into 2 or 3, which is a pretty drastic difference. Especially when there's no Immortal to kind of like punch through the Marauders. So I'm concerned. Let's not talk badly about any players. Is that what's going on in my chat right now? Let's not be... Yeah, you're just talking badly about him. I'm just gonna warn you to stop talking about it now. Alright then. Vikings are already on the way. Ghosts are already included. HeRoMaRiNe 3-base saturation. It's also got 1-1 upgrades against 1-1. Disruptor going to kill Zealots more than the Terran army. Good old Concave on this 4th base as well. DnS might just be better off canceling this. He's not going to get the cancel. 400 minerals down the drain, as well as his Disruptors. Does he notice? Still doesn't notice the Colossus not getting the extra shots in. 2 more Disruptors are on the way, but is this really going to be enough? A couple shield batteries could also be helpful against the Viking coverage of the Colossus, but not stopping those down either. It's all about these Disruptors. Oh, the Terran army is going into the Colossus through a choke, so it makes the Colossus jobs a little bit easier, but there's just not enough fodder on the ground. In fact, this one Disruptor could have gotten an amazing shot, was actually sniped. The second one not getting a very good shot either, and HeRoMaRiNe simply overpowering his opponent, which is quite fortunate because behind this, he is losing all of his mineral line at third base, but his army has such a resounding win that it's probably not going to matter, and DnS knows it. GG. I'm not saying standard thermal lance would have been the big difference maker, but I still, like, it was a mistake. It was just a mistake. I don't think he took... I think the amount of damage you have to take to think that not going for extended thermal lance is a good idea